In today's video, I wanted to talk about Fred VanVleet and just how good he's been so far this season, and why I think so far in the 2021 and 22 season, he does deserve to make the All-Star team. And if you guys watch the channel consistently, you know that I am a Raptors fan, and this coming from me may seem biased, but I'm going to give lots of proof, stats, and analysis today to try to convince you guys why Freddie does deserve to make the All-Star team this season. Now, before I get started with the video today, it turns out that in the last 28 days, basically 94% of you guys watching my videos aren't subscribed to the channel. Obviously, this is just absolutely insane, and we just hit 900 subscribers, but we are so close to 1,000. It'd be really great if you guys are new to the channel, if you could hit that subscribe button. I post lots of NBA content consistently, and we're so close to 1,000, so it'd be great if you guys could subscribe if you're new. With that being said, let's get started. So let's start off by talking about Fred VanVleet's scoring ability. As so far this season for the Raptors, he's been pretty much far and away their leading scorer on the team, has really led them in every way offensively, but when we talk about scoring in particular, he's really done a fantastic job. As in terms of efficiency, he's definitely having the best year of his career. He's becoming a better finisher at the rim, as before he really wasn't a great finisher, and he still really isn't a really good finisher, but he has improved on that. His handles are really good. He can really create his own shot for himself. He does a great job when the big man of the other team gets switched onto him. He always takes the advantage of that mismatch and is a fantastic distance shooter, and he can also play off ball. Like I said, he does a good job of creating his own shot, but there's a lot of other talent on this Raptors team. He can play off the ball, he can go to the corners, knock it down from there, and he's also really good in transition, especially that's where he gets a lot of his buckets at the rim, is by getting out in transition and getting easy baskets at the rim. So overall, so far this season for Fred, he's putting up 20.1 points per game, which consistently he's been putting up pretty much 20 a game over the course of the whole season for this team, and his efficiency has been pretty good, as he's shooting 43.4% from the field, which is slightly below league average, but definitely a career high for him. And then from three, like I mentioned, he's really been a great shooter throughout his whole career, and this year specifically, shooting almost 40% from three and doing it on really good volume too, 8.5 attempts per game from three. Not to mention he's automatic from the free throw line, shooting 87% from the line, and also shooting a 57.2% true shooting, which is slightly above the league average in today's NBA as well. So you can see here with the stats and what I've seen personally from him with my own eyes watching every single Raptors game this year, Fred VanVleet is definitely a really good scorer, probably one of the best scorers in the Eastern Conference right now. And you look at his numbers and you might not think these are all-star type of scoring numbers, but what I think really makes Fred VanVleet an all-star is the other aspects of his game, and one of those aspects is his playmaking ability. As so far this season, Freddie has really anchored this offense for the Raptors. He's always creating shots for his team. His basketball IQ is getting higher as the games go on. He's done a really good job of running the pick and roll with the big man of this team, and like I said, just creating his open shots for his teammates, whether it's at the rim on lobs or out on the perimeter for threes or really anywhere else on the court. Freddie always does a great job of finding the open man, starting good sequences of ball movement sometimes, and really just being a fantastic overall playmaker. He also has pretty good gravity, as when he has the ball in his hands, especially when he's driving towards the rim or even when he's on the perimeter just trying to create his own shot, he can draw a lot of double teams, since he's really a good scoring threat now and is that main guy on the team that is really controlling everything offensively now. He has a lot of gravity, and even when he's playing off ball too, because he's such a threat from three, he can open up certain things offensively because he always has someone drawn to him now. When we take a look here just at some basic stats to show Freddie's good playmaking ability so far this year for the Raptors, he's averaging a career high 6.7 assists per game, which as you can see really has a big effect on this Raptors team, as they don't exactly have another really primary playmaker on this team that can create open shots for the offense. So Freddie being that main playmaker is definitely something that the Raptors really need, and I'm going to talk about his impact a little bit later on this video as well, and just the difference that he makes on this team when he's on the court and off the court. And then also Freddie's been averaging 3 turnovers per game this year, which is really not that much. I mean, it is a career high for him, and that is going to come with being the main player on the team, but he's still averaging an assist to turnover ratio per game of about 2.3 to 1, which is getting up there with some of the best in the NBA as well. So Freddie is definitely offensively the best player on this Raptors team. He's had a great impact for them offensively this year and done a really good job of being that main point guard for them. Now, even though Fred has definitely been very good offensively, as I just talked about for the Raptors so far this season, his numbers still may not stand out as being an all-star type of player, but what I think really differentiates him from some of the other guys in contention for making the all-star team this year in the Eastern Conference is his incredible defense. And I think a lot of the time when we talk about awards like the MVP, for example, and we talk about making the all-star team and all-NBA teams and all that kind of stuff, defense can sometimes get lost, but it's still extremely important, and we still got to factor it in a lot. And I truly do think that Fred VanVleet is probably one of, if not the most underrated defender in the NBA right now. I mean, people don't understand just how good a defender he is. I personally think that he's probably a top 20 to top 25 defender in the NBA right now. When we talk about his on-ball defense, he's a good on-ball perimeter defender. He can really get up in you on the perimeter, and he's also a really underrated interior defender. I mean, this guy's only 6 foot, but if he gets switched onto a big man, maybe if it's not like a 7-foot center, but if it's like a small forward or power forward that's pretty good in the post, Fred VanVleet can still do a really good job of defending down low in the post, and he can be a really good interior defender for his size. And then that's not even where his main value is defensively. I mean, he's a very good help defender, off-ball defender. When he's helping off of the wings, he does a really good job of doing things like when someone's driving towards the rim, he can try to get a hand in there, get a deflection or a steal, but then even if it's passed back out to his man, he still does a really good job of recovering out and doing a good job of desperately leaping out and contesting threes on the perimeter as well. So overall, I really don't see anything that Fred VanVleet doesn't do at a very good level defensively, especially his off-ball defense. I don't really like using stats that much for defense because I think it's really more based on the eye test, but when we look at some stats here for Fred, when we talk about his off-ball defense, like I mentioned, he right now is 12th in the NBA, or tied for 12th in the NBA in steals per game with 1.6 per game, 3rd in the NBA in deflections per game with about 3.6, with, by the way, number 1 being his teammate Gary Trent Jr. And then he's also has a very good defensive field goal percentage of 43%, meaning when he's guarding someone, they're only shooting 43% from the field, which is below league average. And that, like I said, that's not even where Fred's main value is defensively. The fact that he has a very good defended field goal percentage and his main value defensively is not even being an on-ball defender, he's more of an off-ball defender, that just speaks to how good his defense really is. And for those of you that don't really watch that many Raptors games, I think you should really start watching to see just how good of a defender Fred VanVleet is, because, for example, I made a video a while back, my top 20 defenders, and I believe I had Fred ranked at 18, and there were multiple people in the comments saying that I put him too high, but that's coming from people that really don't watch Fred play defense that much. I'm sure of it, because he is an elite defender, and I truly do think that at some point in his career, he's going to have to make an all-defensive team at some point, because he's just that good of a defender. And I really think that, like I mentioned, this has to factor in a lot to the all-star team as well. If you have a player that's just as good offensively as Fred, there's no way that you can take that player over him unless they're an elite defender as well, because I really do think that Freddie's defense separates him from a lot of other players across the Eastern Conference and across the NBA in general. And then when we look at just overall Fred VanVleet's impact on this team, they would really be nowhere without him. And I think what a lot of people would say when I bring up the idea of Fred VanVleet being an all-star this year, a lot of people would try to debunk it by saying the Raptors are not in contention and their team hasn't done well enough to have VanVleet be in that spot. He hasn't led them to a good enough spot. But first of all, when you look at what the placement they're in right now, they're only 1 game under 500. They're sitting in that 10 seed. A lot of people think that the Raptors are out of it just because for some of the year they've been sitting in like that 11, 12, or 13 seed. seed, but the Eastern Conference is so jam-packed and so close right now that the Raptors are sitting at the 10 seed at 14 and 15, and they're actually only one game back of the 6th seeded Philadelphia 76ers, who are sitting at 16 and 15. So really 6 through pretty much 12 right now is so close in the Eastern Conference that you can kind of give any of those teams credit for having decent team success. And when you look at the impact of what Fred VanVleet's had on this team, we look at a stat like his on-off rating, which is plus 15.3, which is essentially your plus-minus net per 100 possessions, essentially meaning that the Raptors are 15.3 points per 100 possessions better when Fred VanVleet is on the floor versus when he's off the floor. This is obviously a huge difference right here. Fred VanVleet ranks 12th in the league right now in this stat, and really you can see on the court too how when he goes off the floor, this has something to do too with how the Raptors really don't have a great bench unit yet. But when he goes off the floor, the entire complexity of the offense changes, and they just don't have the same flow when Freddie's off the floor compared to when he's on the floor. He really goes on the court and settles everything down, and he's kind of taking on that role of being like the Kyle Lowry of the team now, really just that main point guard that's the main leader of the team and kind of taking over everything, and just has such a big impact on this team and is really that veteran player. So when you look at his impact overall, the Raptors would be toast without Fred VanVleet this season, so that definitely has to factor into it as well. And then lastly here, just a lot of you guys probably think that there's so many great players in the NBA that are in contention for an all-star spot that Fred VanVleet just might have to be left out. But if we're being honest with ourselves, I feel like there's a lot of players this year that usually make the all-star team that just straight up don't deserve to make it over some of the more improved players like Fred VanVleet, for example, this season. Like, for example, if we take Bradley Beal, you cannot tell me that this season alone, Bradley Beal has been a better basketball player than Fred VanVleet. I mean, not as efficient, slightly better volume scorer, but not nearly as good a playmaker, not as good defensively, hasn't had as big an impact toward team success. And you just can't take a player like Beal, for example. That's just one example, but I feel like there's many others where if you actually look at the stats and what they've done to their team this season, Fred VanVleet definitely deserves to make it. When you factor in, like I mentioned in today's video, defense as well, you value that into the discussion, I really don't see how Freddie's not an all-star. So that's pretty much my analysis for today's video. I truly do think that Fred VanVleet should be an all-star this season. I explained it in today's video. His good scoring, his great playmaking, his impact towards this Raptors team, and how they're in the mix now to really be in that play-in spot or potentially in the top eight this season as well. His very good defense, how he's a fantastic on-ball and off-ball defender. I think all this stuff really needs to factor in. We need to be honest with ourselves that Fred VanVleet does deserve so far to make the all-star team this season. Thank you guys for watching today's video. Like I mentioned, if you are new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you all next video.